I think that AI agents can accelerate that. I think people talk about AI like you buy it off the shelf at the supermarket. We have AI. Like, I don't even know what that means. I think the application of it is a much different story, especially for guys and gals that didn't want to take this job because they love to work with technology. It was because they wanted to work with their hands, do something meaningful they could be proud of, and every day feeling proud of the work they did for a customer. AI should be a silent or a quiet whisper. It should be on your shoulder, available to you in the workflow, listening, learning, and offering suggestions and support, not another thing, the 10th app on a job site that you go to ask questions.
I think potentially like that centralized data conversation, like AI could play heavily into that, pulling different sources of data from different places eventually. And he's doing that right now, of course. But like you say, it's as good as the information that you put into it. I think that's where most people fall over. Aaron, welcome back to the Sideshow podcast.
Thanks for having me back, Matt.
We were just talking offline. You were on the show in June of 2020. Doesn't feel like that long ago.
4 years. It's gone by very quickly.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
almost to the week. Yeah, wow.
We're on the verge of another drama-free presidential election, guaranteed.
Oh yeah, sure, no doubt. Mate, so you're joining in today from Tennessee,
Nashville, Tennessee. That's it.
Fantastic. And for you listeners and viewers out there that aren't familiar or have forgotten, on the previous episodes I did with Aaron, we were talking about the series was titled Creating the Ultimate Communication Framework in Your Trade Business, and we spoke about the impact of technology in modern business. We spoke about technicians' 3 lines of defense, workflows, knowledge base, and live calls, and we also talked about live streaming company processes. So that was episodes, 249, 250, 251, and if my sheet here is right, Aaron, when this one goes live, it's going to be episode 411. So yeah, hang on, 412. So yeah, it's a while ago.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you've been doing the last 4 years. Been a little busy.
Yeah, that's it. Just like you, having babies and podcasting.
I know it. Having babies and podcasting. I love it. I love it.
So man,
it's been busy. It's been busy. We've been continuing to focus on technicians, continue to focus on mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and had a couple of children. You know, all the things that happen in the normal 4 years of life. It's been the advent of AI.
Hopefully not the next 4.
Yeah, no, I think we're done.
Yeah,
I'm too old. I'm already gonna be the oldest guy at high school graduation. So
right,
I
feel that.
Glad you bought your grandpa.
Your granddad, yeah. Your granddad's got some sweet tats.
Yeah, right.
So what's do you want to give the viewers a bit of insight as to XOI and just tell them about what you guys do?
Yeah. So probably did this before, but I'll do a quick version of it. I think, XOI has been focused on the job site. So we call it kind of the curb to curb space. We're not a field service management solution. We're not trying to be. We integrate with a lot of them. But we care very much about from the technician leaves their van to the time they come back. And if you think about that space, it's kind of the heartbeat of the field service industry. It's where all the magic happens. It's where the sale, the install, the service. And we know very little overall about what the technician's capable of, what the asset is capable of. It's probably one of the biggest things that we've evolved on in the last few years, and the connection between the two. And so no matter what industry you may serve, there's a box and there's a human, and there's a problem to solve. And XOI thinks about that problem every single day. So awesome. That's us in a nutshell.
Cool. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how to overcome labor shortages. Skilled employee investment with skilled employee investment.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's interesting. Just recently, there was an article that came out, I think in the Post or something, New York Post, talking about Gen Z and how much more they're getting into the skilled trades and how much college admissions have come down.
I think
I
I
think
saw
for the
something
first
about
time.
that. It was like some kid or some guy was saying, "I'll tell you what the next trade, craze is going to be. It's going to be like blue collar work or something like that."
Yeah, yeah. I'll shout out my friend Josh Zolan, who wrote a book called "Blue is the New White," and
Right.
it's kind of interesting. I think the book is probably 4 or 5 years old at this point, but really calling that out, and that transition's happening, and it's cool to see.
I mean,
People are realizing.
it's funny. Even when I was going through like the system, 1,000 years ago, it was the trades was kind of seen as a bit of a well, you'll do a trade if you're not academic or if you can't get into university or whatever, and it was always a bit of a fallback. And I remember even going through that and I'm thinking, these guys are like, so many of my friends doing these like marketing degrees or whatever. Like ironically, I now run a marketing agency and I've never once asked a single person that's come to work for me if I have a degree. Like I'm just not interested. Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's pretty common in that era for people to be spending all this time investing into getting a degree on something that won't actually get them a job.
I think it's the one of the positive things of many, of course, lots of negative too, but of the internet and public sharing of information. I
Mm.
think enough people realize how much investment that is and what it leads to for a lot of folks in next to meaningless degrees in a lot of cases. And that's become well known, you
There's
know?
a great book that I read called The Real MBA. And it's basically talking about a guy who, instead of, like, he went and did an MBA and then he figured out that he pretty much could have got, and for those of you guys that don't know, like a master of business or bachelor of business or whatever it's called, it's about $100,000 program that you go through. And this guy reckons he got more out of reading like 7 or 8 books, specific books, and then having the actual experience of starting the business and running it and actually living in it. It's a funny thing because I remember having these conversations with like friends and colleagues of mine that have done an MBA, and we're talking about different things in the business, and I'm like, oh right, that's what you call that. Yeah, this is what we do with that. Like it's that experience of going through it which really gives you I think the runs on the board, not so much the bit of paper.
Yeah, agree.
But
I'd
that said,
say,
there are some companies out there, like in the corporate scene, I suppose, that would hire based on the fact that someone does have an MBA tick next to their name. Maybe, I don't know, but certainly not in the trades. And yeah, anyway.
very rarely do I see a leader in the trades, a CEO, president, VP at that level that
Mm.
didn't come from that bottom. And I think that's one of the most endearing things about our market and our industry. You very rarely see, I've seen it in one situation, and I'm not sure how long this guy will last. The old Ivy League MBA getting parachuted into the CEO role.
Oh, wow.
Maybe with a lot of this PE consolidation that's happening, perhaps they're speaking the language those guys want to hear and it'll work for them. But I think operating truly a business, very rarely do you see someone get parachuted in that corporate type way. They came from the bottom, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's never worked in my business either. Like, and I think the ideal progression to somebody in that leadership position is someone that's been through different departments. They understand the flow of the
I
business,
get
and
it.
it's very hard to like drop someone into that. I mean, I know the big corporates do it, but then
Yeah.
you look at those big corporate CEOs and all those guys. How do they bounce from one industry to the next, and achieve success in that? And I think essentially it comes down to the fact that they have like a very good concept of people skills. They might not understand the product as well as like perhaps the majority of people that work in that company, but they certainly
Hmm.
have a good way of building team and building culture and
Yeah.
bringing people together that are smarter and more knowledgeable than them.
Yeah. Agreed. I think those kind of skills are transitive, whereas, depending on the size of your business and probably the folks listening to this would go, who? Why? Right? Would I build this? Unless they're kind of part of a PE conglomerate that only cares about the numbers, right? And I think those have their own cultural offshoots that aren't great.
Mm. So we're talking about skilled employee investment. I mean, I suppose naturally we gravitate towards financial investment, but I'm guessing this conversation is going to steer a lot more to time and energy investment as part of that
Yeah.
paradigm.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think we have seen more than anything across our customer base, folks investing into building their own universities. Interestingly, investing more into kind of the EQ side. You hear this a lot, like hiring for attitude, not aptitude. You see that happening in more intentional ways where, some guys listening to this, guys and gals coming from the same background I did, because when I first heard it, I rolled my eyes too. Where it's like, oh, we're going to do trust falls. We're going to start doing, psychoanalysis on technicians, right? But getting a sense of what someone cares about, what kind of, what drives them and how they're motivated is really helpful in managing them and understanding what kind of contributor they're going to be. So I'm seeing an interesting number of companies, kind of small, medium, and large, investing into understanding the soft skills first and saying the technical piece we can figure out, and so that's coming more and more for sure.
Yeah, I guess there's like pros and cons to that. I mean, especially when like over here, certainly in Australia, where you can't go hire a plumber who doesn't have that certification, for example. Like you've got to
Right.
have that qualification. It'd be like you wouldn't go hire someone who's a doctor just based on the fact they've got a good attitude, right? They've got it. So there's a certain um, level of criteria which needs to become relevant at some point in that
Yeah.
conversation. However, one of the big things, and this kind of plays in, I think, to part of the conversation when is the development of existing team members through our system, and whether that's them serving apprenticeships or whatever it might be. That's a really powerful way that you can take someone on in the beginning with a good attitude and then train them through the process to earn the skills or the qualifications they
Hmm.
need in order to do the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think the combination of being able to give them resources to do that and showing them the path, I think that's the other thing we're seeing quite a bit as well, is defining and documenting the path out of the gate. So
Yeah.
they understand how are they structured, technician 1, 2, 3, or whatever the case may be, journeyman level. It gives them a clear path to drive through that, and then empowering them with, tools that kind of symbolically, at least, or at least closely resemble the kind of tools they use from a technology perspective as a 21-year-old, 20-year-old, And so I think that's the common clash between technology businesses and users, is trying to understand that line of, oh, I built it because it's cool, but I didn't think about the user and what they really need or they need to see in the field, and trying to find that balance of effective against, we just built it because we can.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so I think it runs all the way through.
adoption's always the biggest thing with tech. Like we have a lead management system that we deploy for all of our clients, and that adoption into that tool and those processes is really important, because if they otherwise it just sits there and they don't use it, and then that has a ripple effect right down to every level of the business in essence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You're going to make it at the risk of not putting these team members into technology paralysis. You do need to find technology that does simplify and does make the job easier, not harder. I've seen we
Yeah.
deal with so many like clients all the time who are just using like 15 different tools to try and achieve the one thing, and it's all this double entry, and it's just insane, really.
The average tech on a job site, we just did a study on this. Fascinating. Probably won't surprise you at all. The average technician on a job site uses 9 apps
Hmm.
to do their job. 9.
Well,
And they call on average, when they have a problem, 4 to 5 other technicians before they call a supervisor, technical support line, etc. So the time spent on that, most people, especially executives or even operations people, don't understand. They're like, well, yeah, no, we use, to your point, a lot of guys will go, yeah, we just use this and this, these 2 things. And then you talk to a technician, go through a day, and you go, oh, you're in 9 different applications.
mm,
You're doing this here and this here, and this thing has a special thing. The customer needs this, so you're doing that. So I think to your point, it's kind of like what's happening in streaming services, right? Did you feel good? I don't know if you did this, but I did. I got rid of cable, and I was like, that's a big expense. And then I'm looking at my bill, and I've got $8.99 for Disney. I got kids, so it's like all the things are $9.99 a piece, and I go, wait, this all adds up to like $400 a month. What happened? Right?
It's
And
hilarious.
it's kind of the same process. So you kind of go through this thing where you go, wait, there has to be a rebundling, right? In some cases of these experiences in a way that's meaningful because it's become ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm literally going through that now. I said to my ops manager yesterday, I'm going to cancel this credit card and just because like I don't even know what's on it anymore. Like every month it's like $100 here, $100 there, and all of a sudden it's like, what the heck is going on? What are these tools? Are we even using them? You know,
Right, right. Yep,
um,
always,
it's
always.
insane. Yeah, the I suppose that that whole conversation around technology and finding the right tools, the right products, the right suite of tools. Often, this is the other thing. Like, there's very rarely one tool that will do it all. And I think the biggest thing that we see falling over is people that adopt technologies that don't integrate,
Hmm.
that don't have API,
Yeah.
and you can't, and it just leads to this super frustrating conversation inevitably where you're like, you're gonna have to double into this or you change tools.
Yeah. I think there are so many businesses out there that have served these industries for decades and an alarming amount of time. You're like, they built a software to do this in 87. Really?
Mm.
They did in a lot of cases, and people are still on them in 2024 because it's so hard for contractors once they're ingrained to move off any type of platform. These older companies with kind of antiquated tools have got them locked in for much
Mm.
longer than they would in traditionally in different environment.
Mm.
And I'm sure people listening to this have experienced that or are experiencing that, where they're looking at their platform they use, maybe their system of record, going, there is like 42 things I could change about this tomorrow, but if I make a change, I see all the shiny objects out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I got it's a 3 year project and I got all my data in here, and I'll just stick with it.
Yeah. I
And you
mean,
struggle.
it's kind of the journey MYOB went on down. Like that was always desktop software because cloud didn't
Yep.
exist. And then,
Yep.
they had to make the desktop software cloud based, and it was a nightmare for a long
Effectively
time.
rebuild it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty well. And they had these two versions running and no one knew what was going
Yep.
on. And, whereas you look at, Zero and like QuickBooks and those kind of things when they sort of started with cloud, or especially Zero anyway, like it started on cloud account bookkeeping software. It's never been
It
anything
moves a lot
different.
faster. Yeah.
But
It
I
can move a lot
suppose
faster.
the downside of that is that tool quite literally has not changed since I signed up 12, 13 years ago.
Right.
Like
Right.
they're not very on the cutting edge of innovation over there, I don't think, which is, I think, and I was actually talking to my Craig, who's my profit first consultant / sort of fractional CFO, and he was saying there's these new tools that are coming out which are going to absolutely smoke it. Like they've got all the AI integrations, like integrated or automated reconciliation tools and all this kind of stuff. Which you think, why wouldn't, like, after 12 years? Come on, like.
There are some industries that AI will completely change
Yeah.
overnight, and I think that legal is another one. I don't know
Yeah.
how much you like paying somebody a ridiculous amount an hour for anything
Yeah.
legal you've ever done, but
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff is boilerplate, man. And they're going to say, "Hey, give me 6 inputs. I got your state's information or your country's information. Boom, and you're
Yeah.
done."
Exactly.
That stuff is going to be streamlined dramatically.
Yeah.
I think as far as technicians go, one thing that we're driving our partners towards is an app, a solution to run the business, a solution to run the field. They
Yeah. That's
deserve
right.
their own focus,
Yeah.
And so when XOI as a company, we look at that 9 apps, we go, that should be one app, one experience. That doesn't equal that we build everything for everyone, but building a platform that allows anything to be connected in seamlessly and truly create a seamless experience. That's for some of that rebundling of solutions, those episodic point solutions that you mentioned, duping and restating information should not be happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of the world that we need to work towards, whether it's us or anyone else.
I think there are a lot of tools out there now that are like back, even 5-10 years ago, it was kind of the mindset of, well, just get the tool that does the specific thing right. because very, very rarely do you find one that's going to do everything well. And that's still kind of the case. But I think now there are a lot more tools that are integrating different things within their offering, and they're doing it quite well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And even like just simplifying, just being able to remove, just a handful of things, take them off the plate, replace them within the one tool, so that it's all integrated and it's all in the same place. It's
Yeah.
It is coming. It's not like it's never going to be a perfect science, but it's there. There's always going to be something, especially in like field management, job management tools. Like there's always some sort of workflow you wish you could have, and it's not going to be in there. Like it's never going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what will help drive people towards a singular solution is when the data that they're collecting in the field is consistently energizing and enhancing the experience of the user in a meaningful way. So it's not just recording it and keeping it there for you to look at, but when you have a platform that understands, we're doing a ton around asset data, for example, very misunderstood writ large. People, even OEMs, distributors, contractors, all the way down to the technician and the homeowner or the building owner in a commercial setting, they have very little knowledge of their asset, how it performs, how it should perform, what's happened to it over time. It's had multiple different companies with multiple different technicians using multiple different software, right? Adding a multitude of different changes over time and having consistency on how things operate. We've been doing a ton of work on that, and it's fascinating how little the industry knows. And it's the core. Without the box, it's in HVAC especially, right? And a lot of other industries where they depend on a piece of equipment, you don't have a lot. If without the box, there's no work to be done. Yeah, we know so little about it. We don't know, hey, based on this environmental condition, based on the age of it, based on how it's been worked on, this is how it should function. This is how it should perform. Or even better, Sally has 6 years of experience, certifications that you talked about. Her experience working with this box, with these attributes and this performance criteria should be different than Matt, who has 3 years, and Aaron, who's a brand new apprentice, right? And so we're going to meld that experience based on that user and based on that asset and connect those two so they can have the best experience possible for the customer. That's a world in which pulling solutions together, and no matter what, let's say it was a connection to a measuring app, they use a big company that does Bluetooth measuring tools in this case or whatever. Whoever can pull that information together first to make that experience optimized, then it becomes, this is the central solution. And everything else plugs in that helps support this central thesis that the connection between the human and the equipment is what we want to make seamless.
Do you see that being some sort of artificial intelligence?
I think that AI agents can accelerate that. I think people talk about AI like you buy it off the shelf at the supermarket. It's like we have AI. Like, I don't even know what that means. I think the application of it is a much different story, especially for guys and gals that didn't, want to take this job because they love to work with technology. It was because they wanted to work with their hands, do something meaningful they could be proud of, and end every day feeling proud of the work they did for a customer. AI should be a silent or a quiet whisper in my mind. It should be on your shoulder, available to you in the workflow, listening, learning, and offering suggestions and support. Not another thing, the 10th app on a job site that you go to ask questions. And especially if you want it being used, to your point about adoption across the age spectrum. Although the age of the technician is coming down, I heard a CEO of a company at a trade show recently, and someone had asked him from the audience, "What about the older technicians, leveraging this AI solution? What would you recommend to them?" And his response was, "We have told our customers to tell their older techs, you should use the AI to teach it, so that we as a company can get better." I almost fell out of my seat because I've thought about the 55-year-old guys I've talked to my entire life, and me looking them in the face and say, use this thing you don't need so you can teach it for other people. And the foray of 4-letter words that I would get back to me if I were to say something like that to them. Like, you want me to use your technology to make it smarter? I got a day job, right? I'm not doing that because we live in a world where tribal tacit knowledge is the skill set, right? It's hands-on, locked in guys' heads, and it requires that type of training ultimately to get it to the place where it can handle the nuance of what we do every day. So it's interesting, and I think those companies will learn the tough lesson that you have to spend a lot of deep time with your users and your technicians to really understand what they need.
Mm. I
If
think
you think that's going to work.
I think the potentially the like that centralized data conversation, like AI could play heavily into that in pulling different sources of data from different places eventually. And he's doing that right now, of course. But like you say, it's as good as the information that you put into it. I think that's where most people fall over with it. You know, like they're not prompting correctly, and they're not like giving it the time that it deserves. But I mean, look, and it's also very early days. You know, like it's scary actually, kind of how far it's come. And have you seen the new addition to the Chat GPT with the voice?
To video or the voice? Oh, the stuff that was released today.
The voice
or like
thing.
last day.
It was like a couple of days ago. Yeah, it's hilarious. And there's all these YouTube videos of like Miley Cyrus singing in like Arnold Schwarzenegger voices and stuff. It's the best. It's so funny, but it's kind of creepy because it's like dead set sounds.
Exactly the thing that was so shocking to me, and I encourage anyone who hasn't go check out Sora, which is OpenAI's video platform. I'm sure you've seen these as well. But it's part of a presentation I give on AI and have been around the country this year. But I showed the Will Smith eating spaghetti a year ago. You seen that video?
Yeah.
And then they've got a Will Smith eating spaghetti right now, which is what world's different. But Sora is creating text to video right now. That's insane. And so the joke I make to technicians is I say, hey, listen, doesn't matter who you're voting for this year. You could have Joe Biden show you how to replace a compressor or Donald Trump. It's completely up to you. And of course, they start imagining different people that I wouldn't mention on your podcast that they would love to have them show how to replace a compressor. You can imagine where that's going to go.
I want 1995 Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, right, exactly. All of a sudden, God, our technicians' training content viewing has gone way up.
It's gone right up.
What's up with that?
Yeah,
man, these guys they're just loving to learn.
They're really enjoying these HVAC videos.
I mean, dude, we're not far from that reality where you will be able to prompt a custom piece of training content with literally, we'll keep it clean, the movie star of your choice.
You can do it now. I've actually got the tech for it. We're doing it for clients, actually, for like some client videos and things like that for marketing ads, and it's coming in. It's crazy, actually. It's kind of crazy.
You wonder what kind of naming, image, likeness type rights.
Well, I mean, even OpenAI with the voice model, they basically, because they didn't launch it, but they essentially launched a warning where they were like, this is what the tool is, and this is what it will be able to do. Hello, banks. Anyone that's like giving people access to bank accounts based on voice recognition, essentially, because it's done.
Yeah.
And I mean, and how long before facial recognition is going to be done as well? Like, like that's done through cameras and stuff, right? Digital. It's all digital. And now you've got these avatars. Like I'm working on one for myself right now, creating these avatars, like AI avatars, that essentially it's just you. And if you're someone that's got a lot of content out there, so like if you've got a podcast or if you've got a YouTube channel or whatever it might be, and it's got all these points to learn from, and then all of a sudden it just can recreate you. It's like, I don't even know it's real.
Am I talking to AI right now? Be honest.
Yeah, I'll put Matt on in a second.
Yeah. Pretty soon you'll be able to do 412 to 1012, and it'll just be your persona. I
mean, it raises a lot of I suppose questions and red flags, but it also opens a lot of opportunity. And I think those you can't turn away from it. Essentially, like you kind of it's here, embrace. I mean, it's like trying to say no, we're not going to use the internet.
Agree. I agree. I think there's smart, methodical ways to leverage it and continue to leverage it, and ways to build trust. At the end of the day, you're building trust with users.
They may not like it.
Yeah.
But like, it is what it is. Truthfully, if you could switch it off, a lot of people probably would. I think
Yeah.
the trajectory it's on, it's so uncertain. And there's so many weird things out there. There's people using it for the wrong reasons. There's some tool out there which like enables like kids that have broken up with their girlfriends or whatever to create like an AI version of that girlfriend to carry on the relationship or boyfriend. Like it's just insane. Like, why would you want to do that? Like, how is that serving in any way any good?
My sense is that my hope, I should say, is that it actually increases the value of human interaction. I hope.
Yeah.
Where people start to realize seeing somebody face to face, shaking their hand, sharing a beer, coffee, whatever, has more value than ever because we can't trust anything else that's happening, to your point,
Mm.
right? Where I hope human interaction comes at a good premium, or we all end up in Ready Player One, and that's what really happens. But, either way,
Skynet. Yeah.
Skynet, baby.
I tend to think that where a lot of the evolution in the tech space would be quite useful would be tied into, I mean, especially from like coming from a plumbing background originally, a lot of doing construction based work. It would have been very useful back then to be able to see as an augmentation stack work or pipe work or how that was supposed to look from the engineer's perspective, and then being able to pull up plans or drawings or specific rooms, right there and then, like that kind of stuff would be, very useful. And I think that technology is evolving, but at the moment it's just
Hmm.
so insanely expensive to design it. Like it's not really practical,
Right.
So like I remember
Yeah.
seeing something at a trade show a long time ago where it was like, here's an augmentation of, like air conditioning, ducting. You put the goggles on and you can see it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then they're like, yeah, by the way, it only costs $1 million to do like 10 meters. And I'm like, yeah, great. So like,
Yeah. 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 Not at scale.
I think,
Well, and you're going to have vertical specific things that get developed. And then when does that get taken over by general kind of artificial intelligence where we all have an earpiece in and we're just talking to our assistant, our AI assistant that knows anything. They can teach you how to fix any
well,
type
that's
of
right.
plumbing issue. They can schedule your life. They can set up a date for you and your wife later. Like they're just, and those merge into a single solution,
Well,
right? From an AI
this is at the
perspective.
point where perhaps Joe Rogan talks about this all the time on his podcast, where like we're heading down that path to where we become integrated,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, well, instead of having these phones and these headphones and stuff in, why don't we just put a chip in our head? And then
Right.
all of a sudden, like now with this like hybrid being, right? And I mean, we're
All
kind of
connected.
hybrid anyway. Except we just walk around with these things in our hand like zombies, and like walking into lampposts and stuff on the street because we're too focused on our phones. We're kind of there,
Hmm.
except it's just a bit clunky at the moment. But
Yeah, it's one of the few things that you would leave your house, drive for 20 minutes, and you'd forget it, and you drive back and go get it.
right, yeah, I
Like
know.
your wallet, your phone. I mean, think about
I mean,
what
your
has
phone
that
is your
kind of,
wallet these days, right? Like you don't
but
even
that's
need a
your wallet
wallet
too,
anymore.
right? So
So
you
it's kind
wouldn't,
of creepy.
how many things would that be true for? How many things would you be like, I'll get it when I get back?
Yeah, I know.
Not many.
No, exactly right. And
Yeah.
I'm excited this weekend. I've got like a tech detox weekend. Like we're going to this place totally off grid. So second time I've done it actually, but it'll be good because there's no reception out there, and we're right in the bush, and yeah, it'll
What do
be
you
cool.
notice? First couple days are tough. Do you notice the anxiety of like wanting it, and then a
I
couple days
don't
go
at
by and you're
all.
gone?
No,
No,
not
right
even
out of the gate.
remotely. No, I'm
Really?
just like, just give me a book and a cup of tea, and I'm stoked.
Good man. Yeah, I've talked to some buddies that have done that in the past. And you say the first couple days they're a little antsy because they're used to always email,
Oh, no
check, check,
doubt,
check.
no
And then
doubt.
after that, it's like peace.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have these. I wake up with like, I don't know if you call it anxiety, but I'm like, oh, I wonder what Slack messages I've got today, or I wonder what emails are sitting there. Like it's all these anxieties which are created from tools that are meant to essentially streamline and reduce
Yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even social media, like making people antisocial. It's a bit of a paradox.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. Yep, I agree.
So I suppose getting back to topic a little bit, the
Yeah.
in the space of technicians today, um, skilled labor. I mean, I don't know if that's something that's ever going to go away. really. I just can't see it ever going away. It hasn't, but I can't think of a time throughout my career in the trades where it hasn't been a conversation around finding and like getting the right shortage of people. We can't find the right people, like that kind of thing. I don't know if it's ever going to disappear. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It is. We talked about AI and the promise of it. We're probably heading towards a trough of disillusionment. If anyone's familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, right? Inflated expectations. We're all like, it's going to do everything, and then there's this trough of
right.
disillusionment, and then you kind of go, okay, this is going to normalize into something people can use.
Mhm.
I think you've seen every technological advance go through that kind of hype cycle, and I think we're headed that way with AI. That being said, I mean the ability for it to break open the skilled trades problem in a meaningful way. I think you're right. To some extent, people are going to have a tough time. Also, people use it as an excuse a lot. It's an easy button. Now, if I just had more people, I could do this. If I had more
Mhm.
people, I could do that.
Mhm.
If you think about the implications of, in our country, you have a growing Latino population that doesn't speak English very well, and then customers that want more and more there to be, obviously English communicated to them in terms of how their service was done. AI can solve a lot of these problems in a
Sure.
consistent way. I think there is, the connection between human and machine. I think it takes a big dent out of it. And I think the cultural shift that we were talking about earlier. I mean, people realize that the college is expensive, doesn't lead to much, and they're watching their friends that are plumbers do really well. And so I think the stigma around it is changing as well. I think there'll always be some level of skilled trades, but I do think this technological revolution does leave an opportunity to say we can support somebody in ways we never have before
I,
to do the
yeah.
job that needs to get done.
I mean,
You know,
essentially, there's still going to need to be people that are installing the things or doing the thing, right?
for
Like
sure.
all the technology and all the AI and all the tools around there that can support the general business or the way that thing is to be done. But essentially, someone still needs to swing that hammer. And
Yeah,
I think we're a long way off having droids that are out there building homes and stuff like that for us. I mean, yeah, people go, oh
I
yeah, but
agree.
there's 3D printed homes. I'm like, have you seen them?
Yeah,
So,
but you could take a lower skill guy and make him more effective, faster, right?
right.
With this type of stuff, I think for safety, there's a big reason, using computer vision for safety
Hmm.
and being able to go, hey, don't touch that, do this, do that. I think bringing in lower, or I guess I should say lower skill. It's a high skilled job, but bringing that connection point of tribal tacit knowledge to any user, I think does accelerate that faster than it has in the past.
So yeah, I mean, I think that, like in the interest of how to overcome labor shortages with skilled employee investment, I think a lot of that investment in the individual should be focused on uh, things that are going to streamline operations, support that maybe, like you were saying, language barriers. Like,
Yeah,
how do you invest into the things that are really going to move the needle
yeah,
um,
yeah.
across the board? Because it's yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I think like as humans we tend to look for shortcuts,
Mm.
and as much as I also see AI sort of becoming one of those shortcuts, shortbacks, cut shorts. Um, I feel like we still need to have a realistic approach to how we uh, deploy, train, and hold accountable. To the task at hand, and how we
Yeah.
develop the ecosystem around that to support the individual, the team members that are involved in the doing of the thing. And that really, I think, is the investment. And of course, it does have a financial burden tied to it. But in the interest of scale, I see that really being areas of opportunity looking forward.
I'll give you an example of the first thing, and my product team deserves a lot of credit for really staying true to our core values, which is, we put ourselves in our technicians' work boots as core value number one. And the first thing you released in AI last year was AI generated summaries.
AI
So we
what?
realized AI generated summaries, work
Oh,
summaries.
yeah.
So guys were doing workflows, very little text input already, picture of a data plate. We, OCR everything off of it, give them information about the job, the asset. But guys are putting in 3 or 4 characters, and we're able to write them a summary to their tone, right, to the business, how they want to
Mm.
talk and communicate with the right bumpers on it. And the 10 or 15 minutes that guys are spending on site, or not, even worse, I came and fixed it. Here's a bill for 10 grand. Not only was it creating less efficient technicians, but also a lot of time in the office. We were surprised. In fact, a couple of our customers were taking technician information from a work order. They were putting it in Chat GPT, processing a summary, copy pasting it back into their field service management solution until they realized they're using the free version that doesn't have a lot of data privacy controls around it. And we're told not to. Companies that were doing $100 million in sales, big businesses, had women in the office doing this for them on a daily basis.
Mm.
And so we chose to do that because it was busy work that was taking away from what the technicians wanted to do anyway. There's not many techs, and there's a few, but not many, that love to write a novel at the end of
Mm.
a service call. And so using AI for that type of purpose for us was a first step in. You talk about skilled trades. If I can get more meaningful work out of my technician base by taking crap off their plate they don't want to do anyway,
Mm.
that's a win for AI. So we're constantly looking for those things. We're like, what's the busy work, the crap work, the stuff they don't want to do? How do we automate that, complete that for them, and get them into the next thing?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of, I think, what you're alluding to, which is real kind of impactful, take away the busy work type application versus
Yeah.
maybe a chat bot that you ask questions to and hope it doesn't hallucinate.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I guess
You know,
you just have to be conscious of making the real skill that we want that technician to deliver on. We don't want to make that redundant. I mean,
right?
well, I mean, maybe we do, but we want to make sure that it's done to the same standard. You know, like it. That's the I think, and that's something I don't think AI can really replace. Like, it's not going to be able to replace that human aspect of
No.
that at a certain point. You know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
What's your take on the whole training ecosystem for businesses today in the trades in terms of cadence and structure and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think training, consistent training, continuing education is similar to safety in that companies talk about it, they put it on their website, they act like it's really important to them, but the reality of execution of it's pretty low.
Mm.
And it's something it's nice to put on the marketing materials, but the reality of executing it's timely and expensive. I think best in class companies make it a priority. They do it in a way that's competitive and gamified so that it's fun and that there's impact for technicians, folks that we work with because our content's largely collecting content in the field. There's been numerous video submission contests for training purposes, best fix, best crazy moment. We actually do this thing called the GOAT Awards, greatest of all technicians. We just had our winners come out. So folks from all over North America, Europe submit craziest content and, best fix, craziest customer situation, deadest animal. It's stuff you see in the field. It's insane, right? So I think gamifying it, make it fun like that. We see folks that do the same thing with training, whether it's continuing education, whatever they're learning on the moment, are the most successful with it versus kind of drawing everyone in for a weekly, monthly, quarterly kind of everyone hates this and zones out for 2 hours.
Mm.
So those are real learning moments anyway. To your point earlier about getting apprentices in the field, real work, or your point about MBAs, it's like the value of sitting in a class for 2 years versus actually running a freaking business.
Mm.
It's two completely different things. And so I think best in class companies are starting to angle towards what does in the field validation, training, opportunities to take that information and train the broader group. What does that look like?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, mate, this has been a good chat. Is there anything else you want to cover off on?
I think generally speaking, if you're thinking about job site tools, there's a simple framework. This is for anything you're looking at, and hopefully this is helpful. But we think about, and this helps AI, same thing, engagement. Like, how am I engaging guys in meaningful ways that's helping them? That creates data. As we know, like you said earlier, the underbelly of any AI or any technology or the skilled trades gap or any training is good data. that creates insights if you know how to draw those insights out, and then how do you re-engage that group at those insights. And if you look across the spectrum at all these new startups and AI companies and everyone promising the world, when you dig in, they say, well, I need your data and I need distribution. I need all your data to teach the thing, and then I need a way to actually deliver it to you that you'll use. And so when you focus on those two ends, the middle can happen. There's lots of solutions to kind of analyze and process and chop up. Keep it simple. Focus on giving your guys and gals something that they can use every day, and then use that same platform to re-engage them with what those systems align with. A lot of companies are out there promising a lot of things with a lot of point solutions and episodic solutions. If people keep that 4-step framework in mind, they'll do really well with tech. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I love it. All right, cool. Well, Aaron, where can the listeners get hold of you if they want more information?
xoi.io.
xoi.io. Awesome. And I've got your email and stuff here as well, so I'll stick it all in the show notes.
For sure.
Yeah, mate, very interesting conversation. I think this is, and who knows, in 4 years' time for episode 1000, when we have this conversation again, like who knows what has changed between now and then. Hopefully no more kids.
I don't think I can do any more kids, man.
Yeah.
We'll see what the good Lord has in store for me, though.
Yeah, I've taken care of that one anyway.
Sounds like yours is more guaranteed than mine.
There'll be questions if there's more. That's for sure.
Fair enough.
All right, man. Well, look, it's been a great chat. Hopefully that was useful to you listeners and viewers out there. If you've got any questions or feedback or comments, whatever, let us know wherever you see this come through. And Aaron, thanks again for your time, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate you.
And that is a wrap.
New Zealand-based home renovation company, 6,593% ROAS. Sydney-based solar company, 2,700% ROAS. Hunter region-based bathroom renovation company, 5,616% ROAS. Melbourne-based building company, 13,182% return on ad spend. Adelaide-based solar company, 2,881% return on ad spend. Guys, the list goes on and on. If you're a trade-based business and you work with projects like roofing, solar, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, anything like that, head across to tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Book in a conversation. It is game changing.